Hey, I'm Dave Swartz, and welcome to another live edition of Dose of Dave. So, today on our live edition of Dose of Dave, we're going to talk about judgment. Um, Obviously, I try not to judge too much. I don't typically pick a lot of fights online. I don't really get involved in a lot of the drama because to me, it's not as important to me. I want to understand more about people, and I think when you're constantly kind of in this mode of judging, you're not necessarily really open to listening. And I'm really interested in listening. I'm really interested in learning. I'm really interested in understanding other people's perspectives. So I wanted to dive into this idea of judgment today. Talk about, why do we judge? Why is it something that I think everybody tends to do unconsciously every day? I also want to talk about something that we can think about in order to change our perspective on judgment a little. Because with everything, I believe there's good and bad. So you have to kind of understand with discernment, how can this be useful to me, and when is it not useful to me? So then I want to just kind of wrap it up by talking about, what we can do in our day-to-day lives to really, help one another to be able to not judge so much. Some of the different terms we can use, different words that we can use, different ways that we can go about communicating. That I think will ultimately help the collective, because that's what we're all trying to do, or at least I'm trying to do, is to be better, and in being better, help to be better as a whole, as a community. So, all right, so let's talk about judgment. What is judgment? Why do we judge others? Why do we judge things? Why do we have this thing called judgment? I think largely judgment is an evolutionary tool. It's something that we have developed in order to understand what is a threat and what is not. As an animalistic brain in the ancient time, that is primarily what the brain was doing. It was trying to figure out, in this environment in which you live, which you find yourself in a conscious body, is there something around me that's going to kill me? I mean, honestly, think about it. If you are this conscious body in this environment that you're not necessarily fully aware of what's out there, right? Especially an ancient creature. Think about ancient man, not really that advanced, doesn't really understand where they are, let alone this fact that they're on this floating rock out in space, spinning, hundreds of thousands of miles an hour, that kind of stuff. And that consciousness is not going to be able to truly grasp much beyond their periphery. So I think it was that much more important for them to understand what is going to be a threat to me, what is going to come at me and possibly kill me, because I would imagine at that time too, there's all kinds of other predators that were out there trying to kill ancient man, and vice versa. So, all of these different beings with all these different levels of consciousness, exploring this landscape, this unknown landscape, and trying to understand, how do I judge whether or not that thing coming at me is a threat, or that thing coming at me is a help to me, or is going to, add something to my experience that isn't, going to kill me, and then that evolves, right? Consciousness evolves. Our understanding of our environment evolves. All the data that we're collecting from our experiences evolves to a point where we now understand, okay, we have a pretty good understanding of what is going to be harmful for us and what is going to not, right? However, you have all this brain power and this overdeveloped, sense of judgment. What is a threat to me? And I think what that translates into is how we interact with one another when we communicate, and especially when we have disagreement. So when we have disagreement, I think two things happen often. The person that there can be a person that approaches a disagreement and says, you're wrong, I'm right. you're judging that person. Not only are you judging that person, but they feel as though they're being judged. But the thing is it's not necessarily judgment when you think about it. When you tell someone like you know, I disagree with you, that is different than saying you're wrong, I'm right, because you're telling that other person you're not correct. Your opinion is invalid. My opinion is valid. So you're essentially telling that person, I am judging you for your opinion, not because you are different than me. Versus, I disagree with you. You know, I have a different opinion than you, but I am not telling that person that their opinion is invalid. Right? Those are two different things. And I think I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit here, but when it comes to judgment and our way of communication with one another, we oftentimes feel as though not only are we judging others, but others feel as though they're being judged by other people. And that, I think, is really the demonstrative part of this thing that we call judgment. Feeling as though other people are judging you, other people are telling you you are wrong. And I think ultimately that translates into a feeling of, I am invalid. My opinions are invalid. My passion is invalid. I am a person, me, Dave Swartz, is invalid. I shouldn't say that because words are magic. I am not invalid. I am not invalid. But the thing is that nevertheless is what happens when someone is told over and over again that they're wrong, that their opinion doesn't matter, right? And I think this goes in a lot of different ways. You know, just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean or doesn't make their opinion invalid, right? And this is really difficult, I think, when it comes to ideas where we feel as though, you know, somebody else's opinion is dangerous, you know, or someone else's opinion is just flat out, you know, wrong, you know, or you know, this, you know, like racism or bigotry, right? Those are the tough ones. I wholeheartedly believe that yes, you can have a disagreement with someone about their racism, about their bigotry, in ways I think you can judge them in ways. You know, I think judgment in small doses is necessary, right? It helps you to understand, you know, how you relate to the world, how you relate to these, you know, these things. And if you have moments of judgment, that's fine. That's a valid emotion. That's a valid feeling. But you don't have to sit in it, and you don't have to create more. You don't have to give more energy to it and make it grow into this thing where you're, you know, this massive warrior for this, you know, movement. No, you don't have to do that. And what I try to do is I try to, you know, validate what I feel and what I think, and then try to understand why I think that way. And bring it back to, you know, what is going on in the environment, what is going on in this circumstance. And oftentimes when it comes to racism and bigotry and sexism and those types of things, it boils down to a sense of that person feels like they are invalid because of certain things, right? They feel like they're wrong, or they feel like their perspective in a way is being judged, that their experience is invalid, right? Many people that have racist tendencies, you know, sexist tendencies, they're taught that. I mean, no one comes into this world with a racist bone in their body, with a sexist bone in their body. I don't believe that. You know, we come into this world as a blank slate, and it's all these environmental, you know, changes that affect how this body, how this consciousness develops as it grows. And oftentimes people who are racist or sexist, they're taught that. They see that constantly in their environment. It's something that has ingrained itself into their DNA in ways. And it's unfortunate. It nevertheless creates, I would think, a warped view on what is real about each other or about us as a whole. Because I believe that when you really get down to it, we are all loving beings who just all want to be loved and all want to be happy. I mean, there's really no more explanation than that, honestly. People who go way beyond that and are wanting to cause violence, wanting to cause chaos, those types of things, they have been conditioned to be that way. They have been taught to be that way. I don't really believe that those people, again, are born into this world wanting to destroy it. They have been taught time and time and time and time again by their parents, by their peers, by their, the other people that they come across just happenstance in their lives. It has a lasting effect on everybody. And again, I'm not giving people free passes. I think we all are sovereign individuals, and we have the power within ourselves to discern what is good for us and what is good for the collective, and how we can marry those two together, so that we're not just fully serving ourselves, or fully serving the collective and forgetting about ourselves. Again, we need to change this term of judgment from judgment into discernment. And we need to remember that when we're disagreeing, we're not judging. But when we're disagreeing, we have to use words and terms, and we have to communicate in a way so that the other person doesn't feel as though they're being judged. So like I said earlier, one of the big things that I've been doing a lot lately, and it seems to be working well, is instead of telling someone, you're wrong, I tell them, I disagree with you, and here's why. And we talk about it. And then if they ever come back to me with, you're wrong, I'm going to say back to them, but remember, I'm not wrong. You just disagree with me. So not only am I trying to teach myself in practice, but I'm also in ways trying to help others to relearn words and to calibrate the way that they approach these types of disagreements. Because after all, it is just a disagreement. Now, the other big thing for me, I will say for me, it's a major problem I'm still working on. Road rage. I know a lot of people have road rage out there. I am one of those people. I'm still working on that one. That one is it's more like that gut impulse, right? And it's funny I should switch to the gut now, because one of the things I haven't really talked about much is the fact that we tend to judge a lot in our heads. We don't come at it from our heart. And when we're not including the heart into the conversation, judgment often occurs. But the same type of thing happens with the gut, right? You have a gut reaction to certain things, and that almost like bypasses the heart and goes right to the head, and you're like, you mother effing, and it's a problem for me because I feel like I'm out of control in those moments. Like I can't control myself enough to not give someone the bird, or to not scream at them and say, you are an idiot, or you dumb ass. That is a judgment. That is a heavy judgment. That is energy that I'm putting out there that is not good, because remember, I am that person. You are that person. We are all the same person. We are all the same mind. We are all the same consciousness. So for me to say to that other conscious being that is me at the end of the day, you're a fucking idiot, pardon my language, that is directed at me. I might as well be looking at the mirror and saying, you are an effing idiot, Dave, right? And words are magic. So that translates into ultimately a judgment on myself. At least that's the way I look at it. You may disagree with me, but that's the way that I look at it. So when it comes to these types of things like road rage, things that are very like quick impulse, short fuse kind of things, it just takes practice. Honestly, it takes practice, discernment, and I honestly think a lot of it just is time. Time to let it be, and reflection. Because in those moments you have to take pause and do the work to say to yourself, okay, I went off the handle there a little bit. I'm sorry, give a little bit of a, forgive me, I'm sorry to that other person type of energy, right? And ultimately, I think doing that enough, translates into a new thought that occurs to you in those moments where someone cuts you off, or when someone, slams on their brakes abruptly and you almost hit them, that kind of thing. And you think to yourself, okay, it just is an accident, or it's just a quick thing. It's no big deal. I don't have to yell and scream. That will happen more and more. And especially in those times when you ultimately realize it's partly your fault too. I was doing a traffic merge the other day where construction was pushing us off and an exit lane was pushing the opposite way. So I basically merged into a lane as this other guy was merging in the same lane, trying to get off of that exit lane. And we basically almost collided. And I laid on my horn. I gave him a big old middle finger. I was like, you guy, like, God damn it. I was screaming at him and all that stuff. And I took a moment after that and I just realized, I thought to myself, wait a second, like, you merged at the exact same time he merged. He just happened to be a bigger vehicle and he was a little bit further ahead of you. So, you just perceived that as him cutting you off. That is almost, I feel like, the worst, because you are in part playing into what happened, but then you're putting all the blame on this other person. You're not taking any responsibility for what just happened. You're not taking responsibility for your own emotion. So I feel like in those types of situations, you really have to do the work to feel where you played a part within this, happenstance, and how you can come out of it better, how you can change, how you can not only forgive that person, but in doing so, forgive yourself, right? Everything is energy. So until you break that cycle, until you understand, okay, this is a cycle that is constantly surrounding me with negativity. As soon as you get in that car, if you're constantly screaming and yelling while you're driving, as soon as you get in that car, you're just going to feel that. That energy is going to start to just, permeate throughout that vehicle. So that's a huge area for me that I've been working on. I think that's an area I think we can all kind of work on from time to time. But again, it comes down to discernment, right? Understanding the part you play in this situation, in this judgment, figuring out, where that other person is coming from, trying your best to put yourself in their shoes. I do this often with my partner, where when we have disagreements, I try my best to put my mind in her mind and think about it from her perspective and try to understand where am I not communicating right? Where am I missing the words? Because oftentimes she and I could be saying the exact same thing to one another, just using completely different words, and we just can't connect. But it's just a matter of understanding, okay, this is what she means by this, or this is what they mean by this, or this is what he means by this. And yeah, I know it takes more effort. It takes a lot more effort to understand where someone else is coming from. It's a lot easier to be like, that person's perspective is wrong from mine, so therefore it's invalid, and I don't have to investigate it any further than that. That is just, to me, like a one-way ticket to being alone and unhappy. I mean, like completely unhappy, honestly. I mean, I honestly feel like there's a lot of people out there that are just completely and utterly repressed in all of the ways that truly make a person happy. And because they feel as though they have to prop up this identity, this cultural identity for themselves. A judger, or someone who is, angry and loud, and always trying to make someone else feel bad, right? Or say something that's going to rile someone up, and that's okay. That's okay. Honestly, like there's tons of people like that out there, and I'm friends with a lot of them, right? But that's their perspective. That's what they enjoy. That's what makes them, happy. But I think when it comes down to it, there's a part of that is not quite understood, right? I think if you're constantly judging and making these like really, really off-color jokes, that kind of thing, because I don't really get into that. I don't really feel like that's helpful, because as much as it may seem like you're doing it in jest, you may seem like it's a joke. There are other people that are taking that in a completely different way. And yeah, is part of that on them? Sure, absolutely. we need to not be so uptight and not so I think taking things personal, honestly. I think as soon as you allow other people to get inside of get under your skin and get inside your head, and really truly try to make you feel horrible, the best thing you can do is to not allow them to do that. Right? Just remember, those are just words. This is just someone else's opinion. Has no bearing on my opinion, has no bearing on my life. I know that I am super happy, dude, making crazy abstract art. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would look at this and just go, I don't know what the F you're doing. And this is kind of silly and stupid. And it looks like a 5-year-old did it. Sure. And that's your opinion, guy. Totally fine. But it doesn't change. It shouldn't change my opinion. It doesn't change my opinion, and it shouldn't change my opinion, because this is far and apart from that other person's opinion, because that other person's opinion circles their life, not mine, right? And that's sort of the interesting thing about judgment, I feel like. You can disagree with someone. You can judge someone, actually, because I think I judge people from time to time a little bit here and there all the time. It's something I'm still working on. But it's a natural part of life, I feel like, from, the littlest little guy, like a 5-year-old, because we still judge when we're 5, or when we're little kids, all the way up until, when we leave this planet, right? But, I think that's the thing, is like, we need to understand, where judgment, plays a bigger role in our lives, where it's sculpting our lives in a way that we wouldn't necessarily enjoy, right? I think a lot of what happens to us is based off of all of the energy that we're putting out there. And if you're putting out this judgmental, really angry, kind of energy, it's just going to come back to you. It's just going to come back. It's going to circle you. It's going to constantly be attracting that similar type of energy, that similar type of stuff. And yeah, you might have like little moments of, happiness and fun and all that sort of stuff. But I think ultimately you're ultimately going to have just more of this, reason to judge others, reason to feel the way that you feel when you judge others. I personally feel like the more I practice this non-judgmental way of looking at the world, I do my very best to walk through life without necessarily needing to judge others, not necessarily feeling like, okay, I look at this person and I go, oh man, like those clothes are really shabby. They might not make a lot of money, that kind of thing. That's ingrained in our cultural psyche. The collective consciousness through culture and media have told us, what is based off of a physical appearance or based off of our whatever environmental feedback we're getting. So we have a story, we have a narrative that we're playing out as we go throughout our lives, as we interact with people and experiences, from our day-to-day lives. So, when it comes to these types of things, I think we all need to have these moments where we step back and we go, okay, I made a judgment. Why did I make that judgment? And can I make a different, opinion, or can I form a different opinion now that I'm stepped out of that judgment zone and I'm in a place of just discernment? I'm trying to understand why I went there. I'm trying to understand more about this person, because again, you can then in that space, you're more open to understanding different perspectives. You're more open to thinking, okay, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. Maybe that person's just, maybe it's laundry day and they're wearing like crappy clothes. I don't know, but it could be a lot of different things. That's the amazing infinite possibility of reality, right? We oftentimes get into these modes of like, it's only this. That's not really the case, because everything is infinite, so all possibilities are possible. I mean, quite literally, someone could win the lottery tomorrow that's close to you, and they could deposit $10 million in your bank account out of nowhere just because they love you and they wanted to say thank you. I mean, honestly, if I won the lottery, if I won, say, like a couple $1,000,000, I would just start donating money to my friends because that's what I would do. So don't ever think that the impossible can't happen, because when you're getting to that mindset, that's a mindset of almost judging. You're judging the future. You're judging what's possible. You're judging, the universe. You're saying that ain't possible. Guess what? The universe is gonna, say, well, okay, well, if you don't think it's possible, then I'm gonna give you a reason to believe it ain't possible, because that's what you want, clearly. Instead of saying, I believe everything is possible. Money comes to me easily and often. Show me. And then the universe goes, oh, well, that's what you want? Okay, I'll give it to you, right? That happens. It's happened to me. I think I've gotten like $3,000 out of freaking nowhere, just because I constantly said to the universe, money comes to me easily and often. $3,000. It's insane. But that's what I'm saying. You have to, I think in moments of judgment, the best thing to do is to get inside of the moment. Actually, in a way, get through the moment, go inside of it and get out of it. And when you get out of it, then you can start to see things from a broader kind of perspective. I know I probably said about the same thing maybe a dozen times by now, but I think it's very important in order to understand why you judge, when you judge, and how to, get yourself out of that cycle of judgment. Because ultimately you're judging yourself. That's the way I look at it. So, one of the other things I want to talk about before we leave, because this is starting to look like a shorter show today, mainly because my throat's a little hoarse, but, I think I've gotten my point across. The other thing I've been thinking about, though, is sort of my expanded perspective on culture and on society and on our relationships to one another. So, a long time ago, I would say I was pretty open-minded. I would say I was pretty forgiving and understanding. But then, I think the older I got, the more I realized, okay, I started watching certain television shows, with different people and watching different, other content on YouTube and things like that. I started to realize, okay, oh, wow, there's a whole nother level of different things within culture that I am not privy to, right? Things that I just don't connect with because it's not, I would say, necessarily something I'm interested in or a passion of mine. I'm super into comics, obviously. I'm super into art in all of its forms, primarily comic book art, but I would say I would be pretty open to, just about any type of artwork, including, musical expression and dance and that kind of thing. But I didn't quite literally dive into these other art forms until recently, where I've been watching a lot of these just TV shows that I would never watch before, because my lovely partner has introduced me to some things that, again, originally I think I would have had a judgment about personally. But why am I watching this? Like, why am I watching this? Because I'm not as interested in this culture. I'm not as interested in what they're doing, but then sitting there and watching it and thinking to myself, like, wow, like I never knew this existed, or I never saw like how passionate people can be about that. You know what I mean? So like, I would say the one of the number one things for me is Queer Eye. Like in a million years, I would never thought to myself, oh, I'm going to sit down and watch, a whole season of Queer Eye by myself. Like I lived by myself for years, and there was a particular type of entertainment that I would watch, guy humor, superhero stuff. That was about it, maybe some dramas and things like that, comedies, whatever. But I was never really like, okay, I want to sit down and watch Queer Eye, or I want to sit down and watch something about the LGBT culture, because honestly, I'm not in the LGBT culture. I don't associate myself with that community. I absolutely love what they do and what they're all about, and their color and their life and their just everything about it. And I think that's what, watching this show Queer Eye really opened my eyes up to, is just how unabashedly passionate these guys are about who they are, the lives that they live, the perspective that they have. They don't judge at all. That's the thing that's amazing to me. I mean, yeah, they might judge here and there. Sure, we all do. But here's the thing is when I watch that show, what I see people who are absolutely unafraid to be exactly who they are, and they celebrate it as often and as loud as they possibly can. And that to me is amazing. That to me is who I think, or what I think everybody should be. And watching other shows, that have opened me up to other creativity, like there was a ballroom dance show on, well, not like ballroom dancing, but God, I can't describe it. Anyway, it's on HBO. It had Megan Thee Stallion as one of the judges. It was just this dance troupe kind of show, and I've never, oh my God, like those dance shows and like American Idol and stuff like that. I've never watched any of those shows. I personally, again, I had judgments about it when I first started. I just was like, I don't get into that. I don't know why anyone would, that kind of thing. Again, judgment. Thank you very much, guy. I'm doing a show. But anyway, but I started watching this dancing show, and it was just like, again, that same feeling of just watching people be exactly who they are, not afraid at all to be who they are. And especially the people that just really go out there, like really just transform themselves and like really, showcase a different way of being, a different expression of creativity. And then watching other shows, that, like Blow Up, that's the makeup, kind of show. Again, I'm not into makeup. I've never done makeup in my whole life. I've done like Halloween makeup and stuff, but like I'm not that interested in just regular makeup. But like watching that competition show just opened my eyes up to, holy crap, this is an amazing art form, right? Or like Skin Wars, again, never watched that show at all. I was not that interested in body painting. But watching that show and just understanding like, wow, this is a whole nother culture. This is a whole nother community of creativity and like amazing people that are really passionate about that kind of stuff. And really, when you think about it, that is, I think, what we all need to strive for in our own lives, is finding those types of things that we're truly passionate about, being what that is to the fullest extent that you can, and expressing it out into the world in a way that's fun, fresh, and creative. And if you can do all of that and do it without feeling like other people are judging you, and that last part I know is the toughest, because you really are, in ways, when you're doing things like that, you're really putting your neck out there, and you're really saying to the world, like, I'm different. And when you do that, it does attract, I think, some unwanted attention and unwanted opinions and judgment. But I think that other side of the spectrum, that other part of that judgment equation, is you, and how you take it, and how you deal with it, and how you release it back out into the world. Because you don't have to let that pop your balloon. Doesn't it? Other people's opinions don't have to, completely kill your passions. I think in ways you're comparing yourself to them. You're saying, like, why are they judging me? What's so great about their lives? Why don't I have maybe what they have? And comparison is like the biggest thief of joy and passion. Honestly, I felt recently like I've tapped into this part of me that is just absolutely in love with who I am, absolutely in love with the life that I have, the life that I've built, the things that I have in my life, the people that I have in my life, essentially the life that I've cultivated. And that, at the end of the day, is really the most valuable thing anybody can have. I mean, you can have all the money in the world, all the beautiful things, the beautiful people. But if you don't have a connection to who you are, and if you don't love who you are, and you don't have the capacity to not judge who you are, I don't think you're going to be as happy as you otherwise could be. I'll say that. So, all right. Well, I think we can end today for today's live. I think I've talked enough about judgment. It's kind of a heavy subject, but I do want to remind everybody that I do have an IndieGoGo going on right now for my comic book, Confederate Monster. So you can check out the link for that in the description below. We're going to be going for a little bit while longer. I want to take it maybe a couple more weeks. I might start taking down a couple of rewards or perks here and there, just to kind of close out the campaign a little. And move on. So a couple more weeks on that. So if you haven't contributed yet to the Confederate Monster campaign, where you get to read a story about Frankenstein meets the Civil War, check that out in the link below. You can also check out my Patreon as well. The link for that is below too. On my Patreon, you get to watch the whole creation of my comic book process, this Confederate Monster book, as well as some more of my interesting paintings and my process with that, and my weekly update videos, which I'm going to be jumping over to do just after we're concluded here. So you can check out my Patreon there below, and you can follow me on social media if you have not already, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe because I need to grow this channel a little. I need a little help from you guys, so subscribe if you have not already. And I think that's it. One last thing. Higher Consciousness, my podcast that I have with my partner, Rainbow Liz. We do that every week on Thursday nights. We're doing a YouTube version of it now, so you can check it out on Higher Consciousness Talk on YouTube, where we're doing weekly videos. We're also going to be doing a very special 420 live, our very first live on our Higher Consciousness channel, this coming Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? All right, guys. So this is it for this edition of Dose of Dave Live. I will see you guys next week with a mystery topic, because I usually don't know what I'm going to talk about until moments before. So, all right. Take care, guys, and hope you have a great weekend.